Hello YouTube. My name is Ronica, Sojourner. I'm coming to you again from South Carolina, from a small town in South Carolina. And I'm going to speak with you again about registering domestic abusers and making them hate criminals. This will be the first installment of 8 videos in a series I'd like to call The Wheel of Misfortune. And this set of videos highlights the post-separation power and control wheel and a case study from that is being applied to that wheel. This wheel is copyrighted, the copyrighted property of the domestic abuse intervention programs that is at 202 East Superior Street, Duluth, Minnesota. And you can download this wheel, and I actually hope that you will download the wheel, and that is from the following web address: www.theduluthmodel.org. Again, that's www.theduluthmodel.org. Again, that's the post-separation power and control wheel. There are several copyrighted wheels on that website. It's a very good resource, and you can use them to actually break down and study characteristics of domestic abuse and other types of abuse. I'm going to use it. I'm going to sort of deconstruct their wheel and apply it to a case study. Again, like I said in my last video, I went to the Battered Mothers Custody Conference back in May of 2013, held in Washington, D.C. And while I was there, I met a young lady there who had a case that was particularly interesting to me. So I'm going to apply her case to the post-separation power and control wheel, and again ask you all to sign my petition on change.org for registering domestic abusers and making them hate criminals. Again, this particular petition is for registering domestic abusers and stalkers and those who abuse women and children. And again, it can go the opposite way, and that's for women who abuse men and children, to have them registered so that they appear on a registry for a period of no less than 10 years. And I'd like to call the registry the so-called date registry. And that way it gives everybody a snapshot, or essentially a who's who in the dating world. That way, if you date someone and that person has been convicted of stalking, domestic abuse, child abuse that is not of a sexual nature, then you can save yourself some trouble and some time and say, oh no, you are appearing on the domestic violence and stalking or the date registry, and you are to be avoided at all costs. So you are essentially undateable because you appear on this registry. So now, at this point, I'm going to start with, if you download the wheel, you'll see that there are 8 sections of the wheel. I'm going to start with the portion of the wheel that says using harassment and intimidation to control a victim. And I'm going to call this victim Mary. Now that is not her real name, but I'm just going to call her Mary for all intents and purposes for this project of mine. Again, on the wheel, you'll see where on the very outside of the wheel it says prior physical and sexual violence, coercive and controlling behavior against the mother and or children. And on the inner ring, in the dark ring with the white lettering, it says an unrelenting focus on her. This is very important, people. This portion of the wheel is very important because perpetrators of domestic violence and stalking against women will often try to portray their victims as people who are somehow dangerous to them, or they try to turn this person into a monster, or to make them seem like they are bad people when actually they're running for their lives half the time. On here I have, it says an unrelenting focus on her, and this is what made the wheel so particularly important to Mary's case. Like I said, I'm just going to call her Mary. That's not her real name. An unrelenting focus on her. And these people do have personality types that do tend to obsess when they will hit or stalk a person. So they have an unrelenting focus on her. They will try everything to make everybody else feel that this person is the worst person in the world, when actually what you're dealing with is a full-blown monster who is wielding his power on victims that he intends to do that to until someone stops him. Again, the first portion of the wheel, or the first slice of the pie, it looks kind of like a pie there, or the first portion of the wheel is the portion that says using harassment and intimidation. And this is very important. This is one of the more important or more common tactics that people who abuse use, and that's harassment and intimidation. Again, inside it says destroying things belonging to or related to her or the children, using children to justify breaking no contact orders, threatening and stalking her, the children, making his presence known while staying conspicuously outside protection order boundaries. That means that the person has actually requested a restraining order, and the person is standing just outside of that. Oh, if the judge orders that you're not supposed to come within 100 feet of that person, well, this kind of person will take it where he's just 105 feet outside of her, the knowledge, and then makes his presence known. Okay, on to the next one. Abusing animals. And this is particularly interesting. Using third parties to harass, threaten, or coerce her. And I'm coming from the standpoint of abuse that is perpetrated by men against women. Again, like I said, sometimes these things happen where there are some women who will do these things to men. But in this particular case, in Mary's case, this is man against woman, which usually happens in most cases anyway. The point of my video is to alter the public's response to stalking, domestic violence, and child abuse, expand the definition of hate crimes, and spark the reinterpretation of hate crimes, expose characteristics consistent with personality types capable of stalking, domestic abuse, and child abuse, promote the registering of those convicted of stalking and domestic abuse, and that is to form what is called, I'd like to call, the date registry, and to promote mandated psychological treatment for those convicted of abuse or those types of abuse, and to have that psychological treatment reinforce on a regular basis that these crimes are wrong, so that they are not re-perpetrated. So that means that they have to be, in particular, my suggestion is to mandate that this person go under psychological treatment for a period of no less than 10 years. That way, they are being told and counseled for a period of no less than 10 years, and they're being told that this is not normal behavior, and that is to stalk or domestically abuse another person. Again, I'm calling this the Wheel of Misfortune. This is video 1, section 1 of the post-separation power and control wheel. Again, it is to raise awareness about devastating effects of stalkers and domestic abusers, and to change laws concerning stalkers, domestic abusers, and child abusers. You say again, what's your rationale in Sojourner? Well, the rationale is just this, simply. Stalking and domestic abuse entails an attacker honing in on a specific target. That target is then harassed and contacted unwillingly, possibly assaulted, possibly raped, and in most severe cases, they can be killed. You say you want to form these registries. Why? So that people know that these are undateable people. Well, why do you want to make them hate criminals? Because domestic abuse, stalking, crimes of that matter are essentially hateful. But my rationale again is this. If a person is caught more than one occasion abusing another person, and if they can show a pattern, then that pattern can be, or the object of that abuse can be considered, or it can be considered that this person has a bias against the object of that abuse. If that person is a young woman, it can be interpreted that this man has a bias against women. If he is abusing a child, again, we don't have to make a sexual assault registry. We already have sex offender registries. So if he's hitting a child, then if he hits a child and he is convicted of this crime, or if this crime is reported to the police, then it can be stated that in addition to being to an assault charge, a battery charge, or aggravated battery, it can be stated that this person has a bias against children, which can then be further interpreted into reverse, what I like to call reverse ageism. So this person has a bias against this person because of his age. And then it can be turned into something, or it can be turned into what I'd like to have it turned into, and that's a hate crime. Take it a little further with children. If ageism cannot apply, and I thought, well, what if the child's age can be turned into what is called a disability, because that child has to depend on a guardian or some older adult, unless they've been emancipated. That child has to depend on an adult for their care. So that child is essentially, in a more abstract form, that child is disabled. So if the child is disabled, and like I said, it's reaching, and it is a little bit abstract, but if the child is considered disabled and this person continues to hit a child or has been convicted of hitting a child or doing that more than one time, then that can be considered a pattern of behavior and then turned into a hate crime because he's abusing someone that is disabled. If the other things cannot, if reverse ageism cannot apply in a child's case. Again, for a woman, it will be considered a gender or sex-based crime because a woman is a woman. So he can say, oh, this person has a bias against women. And this is essentially the rationale for my petition on change.org, and I'm sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next form of, or to the next portion of my video, and that is to get into the first section of this video. Harassment and intimidation. Well, in Mary's case, Mary had a very, like I said, a very sad case. Mary dated this person for quite some time. This gentleman had been unemployed for a significant amount of time during their dating period. They were college sweethearts, so Mary didn't want to break it off right away. She wanted to have faith and belief that, let's say, we're going to call him Mr. X. That Mr. X was going to pick up his life, move on, move forward, because he had intended to marry Mary. Well, this X turned out to be one of the worst men ever to call himself a boyfriend or a fiance for that matter. This gentleman joined the police force. After their breakup, they ended up with a child, actually more than one child. After their breakup, he used everything he could to essentially destroy Mary's life. Okay, Mary worked in the healthcare field. She worked in administration. And he then, after their breakup, and like I said, this is the post-separation power and control bill. They had 3 children. After their breakup, this gentleman went to a job. He pretended to be with the police force, active with the police force, and he accused Mary of several different crimes. He used friends on the police force to enter into a national database, enter this person's picture into a national database, Mary's picture into a national database, and have various crimes be reported and recorded on her, and crimes she had never committed. Never committed. Whenever anyone did a background check on Mary, so because she lost her job due to this gentleman, due to Mr. X. Whenever anyone did a background check on Mary, they were being fed all these lies from his buddies at the police force. He then used cops who were active on the force to canvass Mary's neighborhood and continue to accuse Mary of various crimes. So he canvassed her neighborhood, talked to all of her neighbors, even down to her church. He went everywhere, accusing her of all these crimes that this woman had never stood trial for, was never guilty of. He honestly wanted to destroy her life because he felt that he'd been cut off from her and the children, and he could not understand why she was leaving. Okay, let's go to destroying things belonging to or related to her or the children. Well, what Mary realized after separating from him is that her car had begun being broken into. She also realized that parts from her car were being stolen. This is the first thing, is that he had a complete fascination with toying with her car and making his presence known through going into her car and moving things around, but not really taking anything from the vehicle. So if she had a book in the seat, he'd take the book from the front seat and place it on the back seat so that she would know that someone had been in her car. He then had someone steal the catalytic converter from her car. There were spark plugs missing. The antenna on her car, someone just came and bent it one day. Someone began toying with the locks on her car. They destroyed one or two of the locks on her car. They began doing these kinds of things, breaking into her car and letting her know that they could get into her car. So whoever was doing this, if it wasn't him, because they had a considerable distance between them, there was at least a 2 to 3 hour distance between them. So it just didn't seem very feasible to her for some of these things to happen and for them to be done as regularly as they had been done, for him to be doing them. So he had help from somewhere. Then it began with things around the house. She looked and she said, "Oh my God, I think that someone's breaking into my house and removing things or misplacing things and doing just silly, annoying things to her at her home." I said, well, that's not uncommon, because sometimes stalkers and people who will abuse will break and enter. They will break and enter. They do not care. They will break and enter. So that's not unusual. They will vandalize things. So, like she said, my car antenna, I had scratches. My tires weren't. I didn't have anyone put a knife in my tires or anything like that. But I did have certain things where people were trying to toy with my, just kind of play with my mind. She also noticed. That someone was toying with the mail. They started playing with the mail. There were things being shoved into her mailbox. She was not getting some of her mail. She was mailing things to other people. They weren't getting those things. They started toying with the mail. Well, that, is a federal offense. So she was hoping that she could figure out who it was, because it is a federal offense. So she was waiting to get someone so that she could figure out who's doing these things to me, so that I don't just look crazy. Because it was the kind of stuff that if you go and you keep telling people these things, after a while they start thinking that you're the one that's crazy and it's not the other person, which often happens to victims of stalking and things like that. I'm getting these unwanted phone calls. I'm getting flowers on my step. I've told him once before I don't want to date him anymore. I told him to go away. I told him I'm not interested. I told him I don't want to be your friend. I'm not interested in a happy ending here. I just want you to go away. I don't know what else to do about you. You are aggravating to me. I don't want you to live anymore. I'm so sick of you. Please go away from me. Leave us alone. Leave me alone. Leave the children alone. Respect me, no contact order, and just get away from us. Well, poor Mary just wasn't so fortunate. Now, I'm going to shift my papers here a minute. I want to digress for a minute and say one thing, because one aspect of hers that was very, very overwhelming is the stalking aspect. She said, I just can't stand the constant, being forced to be in constant contact with this man. You don't understand how intimidating it is to be in constant contact with this person through, you're leaving notes on the car, or you're shifting things around in my car, and I know that it's, I know that I left, this particular book on the front seat, now it's on the back seat, or it's in the trunk. I look at, 2 days later, I find it in my trunk, or, things like that. And you're trying to explain these things to the police, and you have no real proof. But what she didn't like was being stalked. So, what I wanted to ask her is if he had ever not only just assaulted her that way, but if he'd ever battered her. And she said, yes, I have been hit by this person. I said, oh, okay. I said, but one thing that is, and like I said, I'm kind of going all out of left field here, is that a stalker is a whole lot like a rapist. I said, whoa, wait a minute, what do you mean? Yes, a stalker will rape you sometimes. Sometimes they will go to that extent. But a stalker is a lot like a rapist. First of all, a rapist does not understand the word no. When you tell them no, they don't understand the word no. So, they continue to go on and assault and batter your body. Well, a stalker is what I like to call a social rapist. After you told that person no on more than one occasion, this person continues to insert him or herself into your life some kind of way. This is what I like to call social rape. It also is an indicator that that person is capable of that particular offense, and it is something to be taken seriously. You look and you say, if you feel like someone, for men out here and the police out here, if you have a person who is stalking another individual, please consider that person capable of raping another individual, because that person does not understand and cannot comprehend the word no. They cannot comprehend separation. They cannot comprehend that they have no place any longer in that particular individual's life. Just like a rapist does not understand that he has no business or no place inserting himself or any object or anything like that into another person's body. A social rapist or a stalker does not understand that he has no place inserting himself into another individual's life who has begged and pleaded for him to go away. Say, well, how's it like rape? Rape is an advance upon an unwilling participant involving unwelcome or unconsented physical or sexual contact. Well, a stalker inserts his presence into a person's life unwelcome. The abuser victim's lifestyle. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to repeat that because I'm reading from note cards here. They abuse the victim's lifestyle. They hinder it and often leave the person paralyzed with fear. So what you end up with is a person who has now have a very, very low quality of life. The victim is unwilling, and their presence, or that stalker's presence, is unwelcome. Again, stalkers should be registered And the world should be warned when a person is a stalker. It should be taken seriously, and there should be heavier sentences, because most stalkers do not spend a lot of time in jail. And when you give them that, usually the most fines go to about a year to 2 years, usually around a year if they get jail time at all. After that, all you've done is aggravate them, and oftentimes what they will progress to are more serious crimes. They will often go after that person again, and sometimes it ends up in femicide or murder. And if it's not murder, then the person ends up being hurt extensively. How is this relevant in Mary's case? Mary had been the victim of domestic violence. He did hit her. The perpetrator's family, Mr. X's family, made allegations of child abuse that were never founded. Made allegations of child abuse, sent poor Mary through all these changes, and they made all these changes. They made these allegations publicly, and set up all these roadblocks and hindrances in this woman's life, when honestly they didn't even stop to ask, how did Mr. X treat you? They never inquired. When the breakup happened, they blamed her for everything, told her that she was responsible for taking a considerable amount of time from his life, that she was felt that she was superior to others, that she felt that she was someone special, that she was no one special, that she was going to get it. Don't you worry, we will get back at you. You so-and-so bitch. And the whole family just hated this woman for separating from a man who had not even paid the rent, had not so much as paid the rent. Anywhere that they went, she was footing the bills. They went on vacation, she was paying the bills. If they went on, if there was any apartments to be had or any houses, she was paying the rent. He was not paying for groceries. He was not paying utilities. He was not doing any of these things. And she was waiting on him to get this elusive job that he kept telling her that he was going to get. And he wasn't. He had no intentions of doing that, because he felt that he'd had a good thing going. I got a good thing going here with you, and I'm not going to mess it up, because I have a what? I have a sucker and a fool. So I'm going to use you to the day I die. Everything I do will be based on you. Even when I destroy your life, I'm going to use you to rebuild my life. And that is exactly what this gentleman did. And he pulled it off with the help of the police. The perpetrator used social media, Mr. X used social media to destroy Mary's reputation. He went on things like Facebook, Twitter, a lot of social media, a lot of places for social media, a lot of those web pages, and began a campaign against this woman. Used friends, relatives, co-workers, and told them to put the word out, because she was indeed, that she was an abuser, that she had abused him, had abused the children, and everything. He then began to stalk not only Mary, but he began stalking her family members and her friends. And he had a very, 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 it was a nifty system if you think about it. What he began doing is creating problems for all these people that were related to Mary. He began creating problems for them. He would use friends, he would use friends of his. They would go in, they would make problems. A lot of times he would make problems on their jobs. He would then present himself as a victim, and then present himself to those people and ask them if they had been wronged somehow, then he would present himself as the solution to their problem. Now, this is a problem he created. He would then present himself as a solution to those problems, and then blame Mary in the middle of that, and say that Mary had called in and done something to them, that Mary was making false allegations, that Mary had set them up. Now, that was a big one. It was that Mary was setting people up, that she had lost her mind, had gone mental, that she was very crazy and extremely jealous of her successful friends and neighbors and relatives, and that she was setting them all up for failure on their jobs. She was ruining people's reputations, and that she was doing all these very extremely malicious things. He accused her of those things. And when he accused her of these things and people saw that, they thought that she was having some problems or whatever, they began believing some of this stuff. So he began mounting this, he was mounting this effort to come and rescue those who had been harmed by Mary. Well, Mary wasn't doing any of this stuff. It was her ex. And he had manipulated all of these individuals into thinking that she was out here harming them, and that she was causing some of them to lose their jobs, that she was out on the lookout trying to harm their children, that she wanted to kill some of them, that she was extremely jealous of them, and that she was breaking up people's marriages, accusing people of sexually transmitted diseases. He began, all kinds of rumors, this nasty, vicious rumors. He began presenting himself as a solution to that. And then here I am. I'm the one who can help you get your life back together, because we're all trying to get our lives back together, because Mary has gone crazy. And she doesn't understand, she's had a mental breakdown. She's had a nervous breakdown, and now she's out doing malicious things to people. That, honestly, Mary wasn't doing. Mary had no clue that these things were being done to people. He used some of his police buddies to carry out an investigation on Mary. Well, if someone comes to your door and they're in a blue uniform and they have a real badge, even if they come to your door in one of those Halloween costumes, most of the time people are going to, they're going to sit down, they're going to entertain whatever you say, and they're going to assume that these things are true in that person's life. Well, what he did was start an investigation using some of his buddies, and he knew that if he used an investigation, and under the guise of an investigation, he could do what? He said, I can destroy this woman's life by just asking questions. So he began making allegations through questions of drug abuse, child abuse, theft, and even murder. He began asking all these questions using police buddies to see if they were trying to fish out to see if these things were problems, or if anybody had any information on anything on Mary. He began using his police buddies to do those things. Well, if the police come to your house and they ask you questions about abuse, child abuse, murder, theft, drug abuse, drug rings, and all kinds of things like that, immediately you're going to begin to think that these are the kinds of things that Mary or anybody else they're questioning you about. You're going to think that Mary is into these things, right? Aren't you going to feel that way? Well, I would. Especially if the police come there, anybody in a blue suit comes, or the FBI, somebody posing as an FBI agent, if they come, then, well, I'm going to think that, oh my God, this is something that's real in this person's life, whether it's real or not. So he used that as a method of essentially destroying this woman's life. So he got her fired in the end, and made a lot of people very suspicious of her. And they even had this support network built up, saying that this woman, that Mary, had been this big perpetrator of all these crimes, and that she was dangerous, and that if you see her, then call into this support network, and we will help protect you, because the whole world needs to know her whereabouts at all times. And no one figured this out. I mean, no one could seem to figure this out, that it wasn't Mary that was the problem. It was Mr. X. He's the problem. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's a really sad case. Really, 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 really sad. We're going to move on here. Using children to justify breaking no contact orders. He did that as well. He contacted all the doctors, the schools, and everything else, and told them that Mary was violating the custody order, and that she was being extremely difficult, and that he couldn't talk to her or the children. Well, they had a custody agreement, so he got the children on the weekend. He kept going on about he couldn't get the children, and he just he made a big mess. And people were thinking that she was just this tyrant, when she actually wasn't. He was making a mess of her life. Threatening and stalking her, the children. Well, this is a big one. He did nothing but stalk her. And I mean, he stalked her for a significant amount of time. He would go to places where she was and would show up, and she was trying to figure out how was he doing that. On vacations, he would show up at their vacations. What he did was he hacked into her computer on more than one occasion. Actually, he almost essentially kept hacking into her computer because he had those kinds of skills. So he hacked into her computer. He hacked into her emails. He knew whenever she was flying somewhere, he was there. Whenever he was trying to figure out, well, how's he getting all this time off from work? Whenever he was there, whenever she went anywhere, he was there. He began, saying that he just needed to know where his children were. So he used the children all the time as a method to get next to her. All the time. The child, the child, the child, the child, the children, the children, the children, the children. That wasn't the case. He wanted to get next to her. And what she began feeling like after a while is, if this doesn't stop, he's going to kill me. I think his intent is to kill me. And she kept telling her, some of his police buddies that, and they were saying, well, we can't do anything because he hasn't touched you, or he didn't hit you, or, he didn't do this, so we can't really do anything about that. But I said, well, what she said was, he began making such flagrant allegations to the community and to my relatives and friends and to enemies of mine that I'm afraid that what he's trying to do is to get someone else to kill me. So I looked and I said, well, wow. I said, so he's trying out for what I like to call a vicarious murder. It's not what you would consider a contract killing, where you go in and you pay someone to do the job. It's what I call a vicarious murder. That is, you irritate someone else to the point that they're so angry that they will actually kill someone else, kill another individual, or kill your intended target. So I like to call it vicarious murder. They sit and they do something to someone else to the point where they're so angry and make them think that it's you, and then watch them kill you. So I like to call it vicarious murder. So I said, well, wow, he's trying out for a vicarious murder? She said, yeah. She said that's a kind of weird concept, but yeah, she said, it's not. I said, no, it's not contract killing. It's what I'd like to call vicarious. Someone watching someone else do it. Also, abusing animals and using third parties to harass, threaten, or coerce. Well, he didn't really abuse the animals. What he would do is he just outright killed them. And when he didn't kill them, what he would do is he would steal the animals, take them away, and then the children would wake up the next morning or whenever, and they look, or they come home from school, and the dog is missing, or the new cat is missing, and they were always missing animals, or they'd come home and the animals were dead. So he would do that. And then using third parties to threaten, harass, and coerce her. So like I said, he canvassed her entire community, and with some of her enemies and some of the people who didn't, she didn't quite get along with. And like, she didn't have a lot of enemies, just maybe people that didn't, maybe everybody has someone who just doesn't like them that much, or maybe you don't get along with that person, or anything like that. But what he did was he used those people to harass her, threaten her, and coerce her. And some of them were on the police force. So some of them would do things. Now, there's two other aspects. He had a very wealthy brother. He was one of 6 children. So he had a very wealthy brother who began throwing around his money and his weight to coerce others into thinking that Mary was this big fat monster when she wasn't. So he began throwing his weight around. He also had some research that they were very interested in, that another company, a small company, was very interested in, and then a few bigger companies became interested in computers, and then they also had some medical research that he had become, several companies had become interested in, because it was AIDS research. So they had some breaking stuff on the horizon for AIDS research, and then some tech stuff that a lot of people became very interested in. Like I said, he had a very wealthy brother. Well, with this brother pushing his weight around and throwing his money around, it made things extremely difficult for Mary and for their children. So, like I said, I am a third party telling this story, but it's a sad, sad story to hear all the details, because this woman needed to work, she needed to support her children, she needed to honestly just get on with her life, because it had been stalled and stopped due to one other man he claimed that he wanted his children. Oh, I want my children, I want my children, I want my children. But as the days and the months and the years passed on, the days passed on, what became more apparent more than anything else is that maybe it wasn't the children so much that he wanted. What he wanted was to see her suffer. He wanted to see her suffer, and he wanted her attention all the time. And that's what she couldn't understand, because she told him, I'm not interested in anything with you. I'm not interested in talking with you, speaking with you. The only interaction that I want with you is what the judge has ordered, and that is it. I don't want any other contact with you. I don't enjoy speaking with you. I don't enjoy being in your presence, and you have made my life a living hell, and I'm having a hard time gathering the evidence that I need to prove that, because if I can prove it, I'm going to put you in jail and hope that they never, ever, ever, ever do anything but throw away the keys. So she had, like I said, she had a really, really, really rough story, and we'll go into it further in some of the other videos. He also laughed at her one day and said that he was untouchable. I said, then this is sounding a lot like another policeman and his several murdered wives. But he said that he was untouchable. Like I said, he destroyed her reputation. He took the children's things, took their animals, would destroy some of their property sometimes. And he was abusive to them and to the children. So now I'm to the end of the first section of the video number 1, which is the Wheel of Misfortune. And this is essentially deconstructing the post-separation power and control wheel. Like I said, this is copyrighted material from the Domestic Abuse Intervention Program, 202 East Superior Street in Duluth, Minnesota. And the address or web address is www.theduluthmodel.org. You can download this wheel and other wheels. And again, like I said, in Mr. X's mind, there was truly an unrelenting focus on her, and that was Mary. He turned every situation he could around. He made everyone weary and leery of Mary. He made them all watch her and watch her suffer at his hands. And he began to make fun of her. He began doing all kinds of humiliating things. In fact, he went so far as to accuse Mary of trying to give him STDs such as herpes and AIDS, HIV. He started telling her ex-boyfriends. He found every ex that he ever could, and not just ex-boyfriends, but just any man that she'd ever been involved with. And he started finding these. He took her address books and her journals and began finding these people and telling them that if she ever contacted them again, to be afraid, because she was carrying AIDS and herpes and syphilis, and that she was going to try to sleep with them so that she could kill them. He was doing just, they were extremely incredibly evil things to this woman, and stating that she was trying to give people AIDS and she was trying to give them men herpes. She had never been diagnosed with AIDS or herpes, and not that she hadn't been diagnosed, but she just didn't have those things. And he was making these kinds of jokes in public and on social media. And he began making jokes about her hygiene. He began making comments about her job. He just began doing everything he could to destroy this young lady. And because of how things take off on social media, he began to be just had a force on that thing, and it just took off. And they began beating up on her and the children because of the things that he was doing, and because of his, like I said, he used the police to help carry these crimes out. So, again, like I said, consider my petition on change.org. That is, register domestic abusers, make them hate criminals. My name is Ronica, Sojourner. Again, that's register domestic criminals, make them hate criminals. Register domestic abusers, make them hate criminals. That's going to be found on change.org. Again, that's www.change.org. You can look that up and sign that. It addresses domestic abuse, stalking, and child abuse. And I would like to use that, if I get enough signatures, as one thing to base legislature on to get some of these things changed, and to form what I'd like to call the date registry, so that you can formally know who's undateable out here in America. I don't think it's funny, and I don't think it's fair for women to have to suffer at the hands of an abuser, and also vice versa, for men to have to suffer at the hands of an abuser, and especially for children to have to. When you put children in the crossfire of adults' disagreements, the only person that really gets hurt, or the ones who suffer the most, are the children who are in the middle of an adult or two adults disagreement. They suffer the most. So let's look out for the children. Look out for your health, physical health, and your mental health, because these things are mentally taxing as well. Look out for your mental health. And register domestic abusers and make them hate criminals. Again, I'm sorry this video is so long. My name is Ronica Sojourner. I'm coming to you again from South Carolina. And thanks, video 1 of 8, the post-separation power and control wheel. And remember, on that wheel is an unrelenting focus on her, and that is the person that has been abused. Thank you for your time.